Francis leaves behind a church that is divided, just as the political world around him is. His papacy coinciding with a dramatic political shift in the U.S. and the global debates on immigration, climate change, income inequality, and what some LGBTQ Catholics call a seismic shift because of the Pope for their community.
Father Brian Massengale will tell you that at his core, he is a man of God. He is also an openly gay priest in a church where many LGBTQ Catholics had long ago given up hope of being accepted, let alone embraced.
Then why? Why not?
But Massengale believes Pope Francis changed things for the better.
He's opened the door for a conversation on issues that were previously closed. So I think without question, Pope Francis will go down as being one of the most consequential and pivotal figures in a new chapter of the church's engagement with LGBTQ persons.
The shift began on the Papal Plain, 2013, when Francis sent shockwaves through the church with 5 conciliatory words about gays and transgender people. Who am I to judge? A decade later, Pope Francis formally allowed Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. Not a change in doctrine, but a radical shift in approach to a group of Catholics who had long been held at arm's length by church leaders.
He didn't push this issue aside. He let it play out front and center.
But Francis's words also exposed deep divisions within the church. Rhode Island Bishop Thomas Tobin wrote, "The church cannot support the acceptance of objectively immoral relationships." Headlines warned of the damage Francis was doing in Africa, where the church is growing faster than any other place in the world. Many U.S. priests said Francis sowed misinformation and confusion.
Certainly, the Catholic Church loves everyone, but if we give the misimpression that homosexual activity is no longer sinful, therefore people who identify as homosexual have no problem, that's for us a very serious source of concern.
Caught in the middle of that divide, gay Catholics themselves, including members of the Out Ministry at St. Paul's Church in Manhattan, one of many gay Catholic ministries that grew during Francis's papacy.
I do think certain people on their faith journey needed to hear that from the Pope. That was the olive branch that they needed to feel welcomed into the church again.
I don't think the LGBTQ community will feel equal in the church for a great many years to come. Francis has certainly been helpful in some of these changing attitudes, but the church is enormous. So I think his biggest influence is the pastoral care, not really in any institutional change.
So while gay advocates acknowledge there are still many changes they will work toward, Francis, they say, has made unprecedented strides in his papacy in opening minds and doors for LGBTQ Catholics.
What does it mean to you when you hear the Pope speak in ways that have never been spoken by the head of the church before?
I remember when he first said, "Who am I to judge?" And as a gay man myself, I thought, wow, I never thought I would ever hear a Pope say those words. I think the Pope's legacy is that he's changed the emphasis of the conversation. He's created a situation where it'd be very difficult for us to go back to where we were before.
Here with me now, Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Reporter, Christopher White. I also want to bring in former Republican Congressman and MSNBC political analyst, Carlos Curbelo. You know, Chris, Pope Francis helped marginalized people feel, and not just LGBTQ, but marginalized people generally say that he opened doors for them. But I want to play for you, this is from Chicago, some members of an outreach group and what they had to say.
Even through difficult times, he was a good friend for us and made us feel part of the church. LGBTQ plus people have a spiritual part of themselves, and they want that to be recognized as much as anything else. And Pope Francis understood that.
The idea that the takeaway for so many LGBTQ Catholics was, I see you, I hear you. Did that change things?
I think so. I remember being in Lisbon with Pope Francis, and he was speaking to a group of young people, and he said, who has a place in the Catholic Church? Todos, todos, todos. Everyone, everyone, everyone. And he specifically, I think, was talking about those that are often marginalized in the church, particularly LGBTQ Catholics. And we saw that time and time again. He was willing to say things, meet with people that up until this point had not really received the attention from the top guy in the church.
Yeah, making phone calls to people who run LGBTQ ministries. Pope Francis, in his final moments in public, spoke out about the suffering in Gaza, the plight of migrants across the globe. It reminded me of when he said, a person who thinks only about building walls is not Christian. He had that powerful words, but a soft-spoken voice. As someone who traveled with him to so many places, talk about the response that those kinds of pastoral messages got.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just recently he was in South Sudan just a few years ago.
Right.
And this was a trip that he was advised against taking. And the country was war-torn, but he really thought, if I go there, this country might have a chance at peace. And we saw even in his final will and testament, he said, I'm offering up my suffering for the sake of world peace. And this is a pope that I think that's what kept him awake at night, and it's also what motivated him to get up in the morning.